Hi, everyone, and happy Thursday. I'm so excited to talk about the phases of recovery today. I have some background noise today, so I have my mic, so hopefully you can hear me okay. Welcome, welcome. I'm really excited about today's topic, and I'm really excited because on Be Live, I figured out how to do the mirror video instead of the what do you call it when it's like flipped, and it always throws me because my hand's not in the right place. So it's a good day. It is a good day. All right. So today we're talking about the 5 phases of recovery and what it looks like to choose transformation in your life. And I have several questions that were already submitted. So, welcome. My name is Kylene Terhune. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I'm an NLP life coach, and I primarily work as a sexual betrayal trauma recovery coach for women that have discovered that their husbands are porn or sex addicts. So today, hold on, I'm just going to pull this up and make sure that it is streaming in the Facebook group. Perfect. All right. Yep. All right. And you can hear me too. Just wanted to check on all of that. All right. So if you have questions, if you're watching live or you're watching a replay and you have questions while I'm talking, I love to make things interactive. So please feel free to ask questions during or after. And if you drop a comment, I will be sure to reply afterwards. So, but one of the things I want to talk about today is the phases of recovery. So, you've probably seen me post a little bit about this, but if you have any questions about it, just let me know. I really would have loved, and I've heard from many of you as well that you also feel like this. I would have absolutely loved for my therapist to say, here are the 30 steps. And in fact, in the addiction side of things, they do have a very long list of things that the therapist and the addict will actually refer to through recovery, saying, these are all the things that you check off to know if you're actually in recovery. These are the things to look for, and these are the things to see. And it's a really cool list. And you can kind of go through 6 months in recovery, a year in recovery, and look at, okay, how far have I gone, like where am I at on this list? We don't really have that for betrayal recovery. Betrayal recovery is new. It's just being recognized as a trauma, and it's just being recognized as causing PTSD and all of these things, so it's fairly new. However, there is a path, and there is a journey that everyone goes through, and there are phases. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And hopefully, I can give you some of those things to kind of check off and look for. And the idea is, of course, to provide you with tools and resources as well. So, the first phase, obviously, that we're all familiar with is shock, right? This is discovery. This is new information. This is your world exploding. This is your sense of reality just being completely destroyed. And this is just like, I don't know what is true. I don't know what is up. I don't know what is down. This is usually a fairly short phase, because typically you move right into the second phase fairly quickly. Now that shock might overlap the second phase, I actually remember being in shock for about 4 months. Now, shock is interesting because a lot of times you don't realize that you're in shock. Cognitively, you might, but generally, you just don't feel like you're living in shock, right? It's like you can be highly functional while you're in shock and go about your day and be reading and listening to podcasts. It's not like deer in the headlights. You're very active living your life in shock. But when you come out of it, which is what happened to me, when I came out of shock, I was able to turn around and look at it and say, oh, I was definitely in shock for about the first 4 months. And then I was able to kind of come down. So the second phase is assessment. This could also be called stability. And I'm also kind of throughout here going to share where different resources that I offer fall into place, because obviously I want to be able to guide you and help you and provide the things that I wish were available when I was going through recovery. And I've taken a lot of the things and the tools and the resources and all the best stuff and combined them, so that we have a comprehensive way to support you regardless of what phase you're in. So the second phase is assessment or stability. Now, this is probably one of the most important phases, because honestly, it lays the foundation for wherever you want to go in the future. And if this is not addressed, and you'll hear me say this, you've heard me say it probably a million times, and you'll probably hear me say it a million more times, that if safety is not established, then healing is either not going to happen, or it will be severely slowed down or impacted tremendously. So this is just physiological. On a physiological level, if your brain feels threatened, your nervous system and your body will not heal. And physically, on a physical level, your body will begin to break down over time when you are under uh, essentially what is long-term stress. And if you do not establish safety and stability and some level of dependability in your environment, in your relationship, then your brain is constantly scanning for danger. Your nervous system will be constantly activated. And over time, this takes up so much energy and so many nutrients. And then over time, because of that energy being utilized, you end up seeing imbalance in the body, and uh, and things begin to break down because there's that imbalance. And so that is why this is so important. So that's just physiological, but on an emotional level, this is also true. If you don't have safety and stability and consistency and dependence, something you can depend on, and you haven't been able to create that as a foundation emotionally, you're in a very, very vulnerable position because essentially you're waiting for the other shoe to drop all the time, right? Like if there's no consistency, if there's no dependency, then you really don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So when I work with my clients, I kind of say that there are uh, parts of safety that are really dependent on your spouse, right? Like he is really, um, he is in charge of what he does with his recovery. And the answer to that can provide a lot of safety for you, or it can destroy a lot of safety, right? Is he going to be somebody that takes a lot of responsibility, or is he going to be somebody that is gaslighting and blaming and relapsing a lot and all those sorts of things? So he can participate in the safety process 100%. And that's ideal. And that makes it more grounded. It makes the foundation stronger 100%. And there's also things that we do on our end to provide safety. And that involves setting boundaries and expectations and guardrails, and basically determining what does that mean to be in relationship with me? What are my expectations for the relationship moving forward? And then having responses or consequences if that doesn't happen. Now, again, and I've talked about this a lot, and I talk about it a lot in the What's Next course. I talk a lot about it in the boundaries workshop, all of which are available. But boundaries are not punitive for the other person. They are respect for yourself. They are part of your healing journey. They are part of what is required to be in relationship with you. It is establishing safety for you. And so, for example, if you need some space to calm your brain and your nervous system down, and a boundary is that maybe you're not sleeping together for a little while things are kind of ironing out. That's a totally reasonable boundary, and that actually is not to punish your spouse. That's just to provide your nervous system and your brain with some space. It's very healthy, very normal. Okay, so the assessment and stability is phase 2. And this takes time because, again, part of it is, what is my spouse going to do? Are they going to get into recovery? Are my boundaries going to be respected? What are my boundaries? Kind of figuring this out. It's really the first phase, you got like the shock. The second phase, you are gathering information and assessing the situation. And this is when you're going to create that stability and that dependability. And so that's the word I was looking for, not dependency, dependability. Brain. So I hope that is making sense. What happens in phase 2, and this is a lot of proactivity on your part in terms of creating and establishing what it is that your expectations are, and then sitting back and waiting and seeing what is your spouse being proactive or not on. You get a lot of information in this phase. Okay. So this phase can overlap with the third phase, but generally, it really lays the foundation for you to be able to move forward. Okay. So you may still be gathering some information because this is something that takes time to see. Okay. So my husband is getting into support groups. He's getting therapy. He's doing the work, all this kind of stuff. Is that going to be consistent? Right. So sometimes there's just a time component there to see how consistent this is and where it goes. So then we have phase 3, which is active healing. So we move from shock into assessment and gathering and kind of creating that stability and that dependability. And then we have phase number 3. This is where we take a lot of personal action. And this is active healing. So in phase 2, if any of you are relating to phase 2, I have a course called What's Next. And that is laying out the steps that you would go through to establish stability, to create boundaries, to to lay that foundation that I just talked about. And so that just saves a ton of time if you're going to coaching or counseling or therapy or whatever practitioner you're working with. It's going to save a lot of time. And for people that work with me one-on-one, that's included as well. But if you're in phase 2, what's next is created for you to navigate that. And even phase 1, because you're going to move right into phase 2. So phases 1 and 2, that's the what's next course. Active healing is where you are really getting deep into feeling a lot of emotions. So when your body has the opportunity to feel safe and secure, and there's been some stability that has been created, some dependability in your life, in your environment, in your relationship, you kind of know, hey, my husband's going regularly, he's responding to things this way. I have all the information. We've been through disclosure, or we're about to go through disclosure, all these types of things. You've assessed where you're at. You've created some stability. You kind of know generally where you are now. Once betrayal has happened, it takes a long, 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 long time to figure out if divorce will be off the table, right? It's on the table for a very long time. That's not what I'm saying here. But you kind of have a general idea of where you're going, and you have reasonable hope and expectation of what's going to happen, right? So either you've determined at this point, I'm pretty sure we might be splitting up, or he's not taking action, or he is taking action and we're staying together, but you have a little bit more of a clear idea. And now you're ready to work on yourself. Okay. So whether you are staying or going, doesn't matter. Either direction, phase 3 is crucially important, because this is where we heal from the traumatic wounds, from the painful emotions, from the betrayal itself. And this is where we start to get that personal support. So I highly, if you haven't worked with a practitioner of some kind, whether it's me or not, obviously I'm going to tell you the resources that I have available to work with you. And I find that, I believe that what I provide is awesome and supportive. But if it's not with me, that's okay. But please work with somebody. This is not an experience we can go through alone. And the depth of the emotions that this creates and the wounds that it brings up from our past, because that's the thing. Betrayal doesn't just create new wounds, it exacerbates and opens old ones. And so anything that's unresolved in our lives will come up through betrayal. And when we're willing, and this takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery, when we're willing to face those, that's when healing can occur. We want to face them and move through them. And again, we want to do this safely. That's why you work with a practitioner who can help you feel emotions safely and process them safely and effectively in the body. So this is why in my coaching practice, we don't just talk. It's not just talk coaching. It's not just verbal coaching. We actually do a lot of subconscious work. So if you've watched a lot of my old videos, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go back and watch some of my shorter reels. I'm talking about the subconscious process and why that's so important, because that is where the trauma is stored. And so we work in the Phoenix Transformation Method in my coaching practice. We work on the physical health. So we support your brain and your body. We work on the mental health, and we work on emotional health, and we work on a lot of subconscious processing, emotional processing, trauma work. And it's all based on your brain leading the process. And we create a really safe space so that this is not something that is forced. It's the emotions and the experiences that are coming up that are keeping you stuck. And for those that are choosing transformation in their lives and growth and up leveling, this is the type of work you do. And so in phase 3, people can get stuck a lot. In fact, this is primarily where people get stuck, because once you've moved through shock and assessment, life feels more stable. It may not be great, but you know what to expect, and you've created some sort of normalcy, and it's a lot less scary than it was in phases 1 and 2. And because of that, our brain likes comfort, and healing is actually continuing to feel uncomfortable and creating new patterns. And our brain likes consistency, and it likes what it's familiar with, right? So moving through recovery is constantly choosing discomfort to better ourselves. And that's there's no way to say that it kind of sucks. But the reward in the end, having more confidence, more alignment, more peace, calm nervous system, calm brain, knowing how to set boundaries, knowing how to use your voice. That is so valuable. And that's why facing the discomfort is so beneficial. So, um, phase number 3 is where people will very often get stuck because there is a sense of some level of normalcy again, where you are out of the shock, out of the just absolute devastation. You've gathered the information, you've moved through phase 2, and then phase 3 is really this sort of like place where, all right, I can kind of stay here and be comfortable actually, or I can really choose to move forward and start facing things. So phase 3 active healing is where you have the opportunity to start addressing the emotional wounds, getting deep into personal one-on-one support with a coach, a practitioner, a therapist, whoever you choose to trust in your journey, whoever you vibe with, whoever you think is going to help you move forward. But that's kind of that phase is where you start really digging into your own personal recovery. And that's the thing. We don't really have a choice. If we expect our husbands to recover from their addiction and their bad behavior, we have to do the same, regardless of whether we stay in the relationship or not, because these wounds are now going to impact us and set the filter for the way we view the world and interact with everyone else. So if you stay with your spouse, this has to be healed in order to have a healthy relationship. If you don't stay with your spouse, this has to be healed in order to have another healthy relationship or to live happily with yourself, um, but not with bitterness and anger and resentment and all of these things. Because if these aren't addressed, those are the wounds that over time develop into anger and bitterness and resentment. And so we want to be able to heal those, and we want to be able to process them in a safe, effective way so that we can feel things like hope and joy and happiness again, and so that we can learn to trust ourselves and others in a way that is safe and effective. Okay. So that's phase number 3. You have the opportunity to choose staying and kind of like living in that like comfortable discomfort, or choosing transformation. I'm going to talk about choosing transformation after the 5 steps. The 4th phase of recovery is creation. So this sounds fun, right? It is. So in the 3rd phase, you felt a lot of the heavy emotions, and you start processing those and you start digging into your own transformation. And so that's where your body feels safe enough to then feel grief. So you're grieving your losses. Maybe you're expressing anger for your partner throwing all this on you. It's not fair. A lot of sadness for what you've lost. A lot of the really intense emotions are in phase 3. And again, choosing to either suppress those, deny them, numb them, avoid them, or choosing to face them, process them, move through them. Okay. That's the choice in number 3. So then in number 4, we start moving past those negative emotions, and get to start feeling more of those positive emotions. We start engaging in life again. We start showing up in the world again. This is also the phase where we get to create meaning and purpose from our experience. Now, when I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's, someone told me something to the effect of, this is a gift in your life, or something to that effect. I was so mad. How rude to tell me that a cancer diagnosis is a gift. Now, listen, I've been in the realm of personal growth and functional medicine and self-help for a really long time now. So I got where she was coming from, but I was still really annoyed by it, right? And it's the same thing in recovery. And that is in phases 1 and 2, and maybe even a little bit in 3, we don't really want people being like, oh, this was a gift. What can you learn from it? Right? No. This is a really painful, horrible thing that has happened to me. I'm trying to survive right now. And what that lady said ultimately in the end was true, right? I learned a lot from that experience. I did grow from going through that. And the same is true with betrayal. We will get to that point, but not until you're in a certain phase, right? So you can consciously sort of know that that's in the future during the first few phases, but subconsciously and on an emotional level and on a physical level, you're probably not going to feel that or see that at all, right? Because we're just dealing. We're trying to survive. We're trying to assess. We're trying to establish safety. We're trying to like figure out what the heck is happening. Okay. But in phase 4, this is where we get to start doing that. We get to start seeing purpose. We get to start taking the learnings and creating purpose from and meaning from the pain that we have experienced. And we've been through it long enough that we now get to see, are there any benefits that have come from this? How has this helped shape me as a person? Where am I going? How do I want to use this? Those sorts of things. And one other way to kind of phrase this is you're moving past betrayal as an identity and you're starting to view it as an experience or a chapter in the book of your life, right? So, again, I'm just going to pull back from my cancer experience. I very much wanted to view it as an experience that I had. I did not want to identify that with permanently. And so that was something that it was a conscious choice that I made. I was not going to live my life as a cancer survivor. I was going to move through it, get past it, and view it as something that was a chapter in my life. I learned from it and move on, right? And so you can do the same thing with betrayal. Okay, number 5 is the 2.0 upgraded version of you. Okay, so this is the strong version of you. This is the version of you that is now finding joy in life. You are content with where you are and where you are going, and this is sort of the new you, the new world, the new life that you have created for yourself and get to continue to create. And so you have successfully moved through all the first 4 phases. You've processed the pain. Now, this doesn't mean that in the 2.0 version of you, betrayal never pops up in your mind. It doesn't mean that you're never ever triggered again. It just means that you've created a new life that you enjoy. It's very safe. It's very happy. It's very stable. It's very dependable. You've decided, am I staying? Are we divorced? Whatever. It's the completion of the healing process through betrayal. Those decisions are made and you know who you are. You have confidence in who you are. You have confidence in the decisions you are making, have made, and will make. And you are now aligned with your values and your beliefs. And a lot of this comes from the work that we do in phases 3 and 4 as we do the emotional processing and the trauma work. And then that helps you align with your values and make those decisions. And then you end up in phase 5. And that's where you get to kind of go on with your life. And you can choose to publicly talk about it or never, ever, ever talk about it, right? So, most people are not going to have a platform like I do where I publicly share my story. So, don't worry about that. That's not phase 5. That's not what that means. I'm very abnormal, but who didn't know that? Okay, so those are the 5 phases. So shock, assessment, active healing, creation, and 2.0, upgraded version of yourself. Shock and assessment are really the what's next course that I've created for partners who have just discovered their betrayal. And this includes a lot of information like how to set boundaries, how to go through the full therapeutic disclosure, how to do a polygraph if you choose to do that, how to create your support team, all of those things. Everything that you need to know to get started creating a healthy foundation of healing moving forward is in that course. And then the Phoenix Transformation Coaching Method is where I work with women one-on-one. And really, it can be through all phases, but a lot of the deeper healing, the subconscious processing work is starting kind of after that first 2 phases when we're getting into phases 3 and 4. And that's where a lot of that deep emotional processing work happens. All right, so let's talk about what choosing transformation looks like. So for people that decide that they want to be someone that is constantly growing and self-reflecting and weeding out the things that we don't like, and it's a very uncomfortable process. Right? Like nobody likes to look at themselves and go, what can I improve? Right? Because then that means you have to recognize that, oh well, I was really impatient that day with my kids and whatever. And so we all have these things that we're going to be self-triggered by, our own insecurities, our own weaknesses, right? And a life of choosing transformation means that we are regularly choosing to look at these things, work on them, and improve. So if you think about, I'm going to just show you a chart that basically you're on a plateau here. This is the typical healing journey. You're on a plateau, then there's a deep like almost 90-degree drop off, like a drop off a cliff. You're kind of walking on, you drop off. That's betrayal, right? That's like we are shocked and something happens in our life. We're not prepared for it, right? And then we don't have any tools and resources. We don't have any idea what to do. And then we have this really steep climb. But, like most people are going to say, I don't just want to go back to this level. I want to get better, right? I want to have a happier life. I want to have a better life. I want to be more resourced. And so you have the steep drop and then you have a higher climb. And if you don't have the tools and resources, that's really hard. And if you don't have the tools and resources, then that's what's going to constantly happen in life is you plateau, you drop, you have to climb up. It's a really painful climb. Maybe you keep falling down because you keep getting discouraged and you don't have the tools and you don't have the support and you don't have the resources, right? And so that is the general process that people usually go through. Can anybody relate? Because we've probably all been there and done that, right? So the idea of working with a practitioner or being somebody that chooses transformation, creates a support system, learns the tools and resources is that you then are able to create bridges so that instead of dropping all the way down, you actually create a bridge from plateau 1 to the next level. And that way you kind of continue to up level in life. Now, sometimes you still drop down, but you're able to use those tools and resources to build a bridge so it's not as steep a climb over and over and over and over and over again. And so the reality is that when you're someone that chooses transformation and wants that personal growth and wants that constant up leveling in life, you don't go back to the same platform over and over again. You plateau a little bit, you feel challenged, you up level. You plateau a little bit, you feel challenged, you up level. And so the way that you do that and don't have to keep dropping down and feeling going all the way to that pit and then falling down and down and down and getting stuck in that place is by creating your support team, getting the tools, getting the resources, and typically that means working with a practitioner, right? And so, again, whether that's me or not, somebody that you trust to guide you, to help you build that bridge so that you feel, and this is the important thing, is like you want to work with somebody that is resourcing you so that you can have the resources, so that you can learn how to do this. Now, I also believe, excuse me, that I really like to continue investing in myself and working with coaches and continue to have that support. Not that they haven't taught me the resources to do on my own, but I like to have the support. I like to have the challenge. I like to have the tasking and people to kind of help me grow and see things in a different perspective. And a lot of the times, I'm able to kind of identify my own issues now, right? Because I've been through this for so long. And so I even have a testimonial video that I shared recently of a client that was basically like, Kylene's teaching. I learned all these things. She taught me how to do it myself so that I can do the self-analysis. So you want to be working, whoever it's with, where they're teaching you tools and resources that you can begin to apply. It doesn't mean that we don't need support moving forward. It doesn't mean that we don't get coaches or we don't have friends that keep us accountable or friends that challenge us to be a better person. But it does mean that we now have more tools and resources to self-identify and be able to move through more easily. I hope that makes sense. Now, I'm speaking in very general terms. So if you have any questions about what I'm talking about, just let me know. But that's what it means to choose a life of transformation. It is creating and gathering the tools, the resources, and the people in your life that help you create that bridge. And okay, okay, my mic has been disconnected. Hold on one second. Can you still hear me? I don't know what. Okay, I think it's good now. That was really weird. It just like disconnected, and now we're back. Okay. So let me know if you have any questions about that. Now I'm going to move on to the 3 questions that I received for the Q&A. So let's start with how to get better sleep during this stressful time, including going through a legal separation and possibly perimenopause or menopause. Love this question because it's a combination. It's kind of what I do with my clients, right? It's a combination of the trauma aspect, but it's also the physical aspect that I used to work a lot with the functional diagnostic nutrition, the functional medicine coaching. So there's a couple things that come to mind with this question. One is assessing the safety in your environment. So if we aren't feeling safe, we're not going to sleep very well because our brain isn't going to feel relaxed. So for example, some women may feel fine if their husband is in the room. Some people may need their husband to be on the couch. Some people may need them to be in a different building, right? So that just Think about your sleeping arrangements. Is the place and the location that you're sleeping, does that feel safe and comfortable and relaxed to you? So the location, the environment is really important. The second thing that comes to mind, especially with the stress of betrayal and separation and all these kinds of things, is brain chemicals, right? So all of my clients that I work with one-on-one in coaching packages get a test called the neurotransmitter test. We look at where your neurotransmitters are, including serotonin, dopamine, GABA, etc. And GABA is a very calming neurotransmitter, and it also can help with sleep. So I have a lot of my clients take that before bed. It's an amino acid, and amino acids are the precursors. They are part of what create our neurotransmitters. So basically, when we take certain amino acids strategically, they help to create the neurotransmitters that help our brain function better. And one thing that might be happening, especially with perimenopause, is that if your progesterone is low, then your body typically produces more GABA when you have higher progesterone. And so as your hormones drop through perimenopause and menopause, you may not be creating enough GABA. And when stress is high, GABA actually increases to counteract the excitatory, the stress neurotransmitters. And so if you have a combination of perimenopause and stress, you may not be producing enough GABA. So that would be one consideration to look into, would be GABA supplementation at night. But another thing to consider would be looking into a OBGYN or a hormone practitioner that does bioidentical hormones, because if you're able to get some hormone testing and you notice that your progesterone is super low, you can actually do bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and take, like, I'm on a low level of bioidentical progesterone, and so I take that once a day. So that's another thing to think about. Sleep schedules is also something to consider when you're having trouble sleeping. Is the schedule all over the place? So again, our brains like patterns, our bodies like patterns. They like to anticipate what's going to happen. So if you can create like a sleep hygiene, like, I'm going to go to bed every day at this time, even if you don't fall asleep, but I'm going to be in bed, right? Like, I'm going to create a pattern for my body. And we've already checked that the environment is safe. The environment is dark, right? There's not a lot of lights. And if you can't get rid of all the light, I would put a sleep mask on. Then trying to create some sort of consistency with your body so that it knows exactly when it's time to start shutting down. Another one is cooling the house at night. So if you haven't done this is incredibly effective. It's one of my favorite things. So between 63 and 68 degrees is optimal at night. So this mimics if we were living out in nature and the sun starts going down and the earth begins to cool. And so we do that in our homes as well. We cool it down, and the environment, the air needs to be cool. You don't have to be cold. So put some socks on, put a blanket on. But put the AC on at night, and that really, really helps to get deeper, better sleep. And then another thing to consider is obviously caffeine intake. So, are you drinking caffeine after noon, for example, or having multiple cups or multiple exposures to caffeine throughout the day? Again, that's more of a long-term stressor on our nervous system and our bodies. And so while it pushes some stress chemicals out to increase our energy temporarily, long-term dependency on caffeine for energy actually depletes our energy and can impact our energy and sleep cycles in a negative way. So I hope that gives you some things to think about. If you have any other specific questions about that, let me know. But those are some ideas. So assessing the safety of the environment and the comfort of the environment that you're sleeping in, thinking about looking into considering GABA before bed, sleep schedule, cooling the house at night, and just taking a look at caffeine intake. Definitely some things to consider. Okay, another question that I got was, how long before you can mentor others through this process? And I love this question because one of the things that I knew really early on, I already worked as a coach. I love learning, I love educating, I love teaching. And so I knew that if this was something I survived and made through and figured some stuff out about, I wanted to share it with others. And another thing that we've all sort of learned is that there are just not enough resources available. There's not enough coaching available. There's not enough therapy available. There's not enough books available. There's not enough podcasts available. So the more of you that are interested in transforming your own lives and then working towards transforming the lives of others, awesome. Let's chat. So, to answer that question, the first thing I would say is make sure you're establishing your own safety and your own story first. You want to really feel totally secure in where you are and where you're going and totally grounded and like you have processed. Now, life is a journey, right? Like I said, I like to personally constantly have coaching. I like to constantly invest in myself and my mental health and my personal growth and my business growth and things like that, right? So it's not like the journey of healing is ever done, but you want the majority of it to be complete. At least that's my feeling. There are some people that go out publicly and share their story during the pain and during the crisis. Now, that's okay because they're providing a platform for others to relate to the phase that they're in, right? But that's not a teaching platform. That's not a mentoring platform. That's not an educational platform. So I would really determine how is it that you want to help? Do you want to provide a listening ear for people to just be somebody like a resource at your church, for example? It says, hey, like if you have a wife come in, like I'm somebody that she can connect with. I'll go get coffee with her. I'll let her know she's not alone. Are you somebody that wants to run support groups, right? That doesn't require a lot of education. It's very needed. That's more peer to peer. So you might be leading, but it's more peer to peer, right? Like they're going to look up to you. You're a little further in your journey. You've had some of the same experiences, but really it's a group of peers kind of getting together, right? Or do you want to become a trauma coach, or do you want to get some certifications, those sorts of things. So I would sort of determine where it is that you want to go and how you want to mentor other people, what level. Now, there's no right or wrong here. All of these are valuable. There are gaps in every single one of those levels. We need women in the church that are trauma informed, that are willing to just have coffee with people. We need people that are abuse informed in the churches, that are willing to have coffee and meet with people and shed some light on the reality of these situations from a biblical Christian perspective. Now, I don't know if you're a Christian or not. I'm just kind of throwing this in there. So, I mean, we need people in our neighborhoods. We need people, in our friend circles. We need these people that are abuse informed, that are trauma informed, right? We need people that are leading support groups. There are not enough support groups online. We need online support groups. We need local support groups, right? And we need more trauma coaches. We need more therapists. We need more practitioners that are available to actually do the work that I was talking about, the subconscious work, the emotional processing work, the trauma stuff to actually help women move through. So I would really just determine what type of a mentor and what level you want to be at. And that will help you determine what that process is going to look like. And then, personally, just from a personal level, I would highly encourage you that you know where your life is, that you feel mostly, if not completely, solidly in recovery yourself. Because it's really important that you're going to focus on your own healing. Another reason for that is, we lead a lot by example. Even though we get these certifications, we get these this education, all this kind of stuff. If you are a mentor for other people, the responsibility is on you to do the work yourself too, so that you can teach other people how to do it. So making sure you're giving yourself the time and space to fully recover and to do the work, and then that way you can turn around from a very strong position to encourage and mentor others. If you have any other specific questions about what this looks like, or you're not sure and you kind of want to talk about the different resources available, the different trainings, certification, education, there's a lot of different levels. So whether you have a master's in counseling already, or if you don't want to be a therapist or counselor, I'm not a therapist or counselor. I love the certifications and the processes that I've gone through. There are tons and tons of different resources if you want to begin coaching or working with trauma. As a trauma practitioner for Betrayed Partners. So if you're interested in talking more about that, just send me a DM and I'm happy to answer any of those questions. Okay. And the last question that I got was how to maintain healthy habits and or how to stop bad habits, like both kind of simultaneously, right? So, there's a lot of ideas here, and it's going to be dependent on everybody. But like a lot of things, kind of like betrayal in general, there's some overarching principles that we can usually apply very generically to most people. So, one is to crowd out the bad with the good. So instead of thinking, well, I want to drop this bad habit, all like these 10 bad habits over here, think about the good habits that you want to replace them with, right? And kind of focus on it's like instead of eliminating 50 foods, maybe think about, what are the good things that I can bring in that are beneficial to me? And then I'm less hungry for the other stuff, right? So, same kind of deal is thinking about like, what do you want to bring into your life? What do you want your life to look like? Focusing on hope and movement forward, transformation, that sort of thing. But from that point, I would encourage you to only pick one. So try not to overwhelm yourself. If you're trying to start a new habit, don't try to start 20 new habits all at the same time. Start one, right? So just a personal example. I've mentioned this a couple times. Like several months ago, I started having this real big desire to organize my house, and I historically, really that's never been like a big motivation for me, right? Like I kind of like let it get to a certain point and then I clean it up. And then I was like, I think this might be a reflection of my brain in recovery because I really had this desire to kind of get things organized and in place and like live in a cleaner environment and all this kind of stuff. And so I started doing things one at a time. I didn't sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do every single room on Saturday in my entire house. I started with my pantry, I think. Something like that. And then I had my mom over and we did the kitchen and the refrigerator. And then I did my clothes closet, just as an example, whatever order that ended up being in. And so I did it like one at a time. I kind of built on it. And then you piece it out in ways that work for you. And so if you have 5 things that you want to incorporate, I want to eat better, I want to move, I want to pray more, I want to read more, I want to do this, I want to do that. Pick one and then pair it with something you already do. Okay. So let's just say I want to read a chapter of a book every day. Great. Do you drink coffee every day? Pair the chapter of the book with your coffee. So something that's already locked in, that's already an existing habit, put the new habit along with that. If you go for a walk every day at lunch and you want to start praying or meditating, start adding that to your walk at lunch. Put a little reminder on your phone when you go for a walk. Hey, take this time to pray or meditate. Um, so pair the one habit with something that you already do that's already a habit. Then determine, are you more forward, like towards motivated? Are you more motivated towards the benefit, or are you away motivated? Are you motivated away from the consequence of not doing that thing? And so that way you can start to set up rewards or consequences based on your toward or away motivation. So I'm really motivated towards let me just think of something. I'm drinking enough water every single day for a whole week. And I'm really motivated towards clearer skin and less brain fog, right? Then maybe put a reward at the end of that week for an esthetician appointment, a facial, something like that. Are you motivated by consequences, right? Well, if I don't do this thing, then I'm committing to donate uh donate money to something that I don't like, or something like that, just as an example. Okay. All right, so choosing one, pairing it with something that's already habit, creating reward for yourself. I think generally if you can do reward, that's better. And then again, and this is where we're going to get into maybe the coaching on this. Understand your motivation. So why do you want to do this thing? What's underneath? So I just mentioned this, like with the water, for example. What's underneath your desire to drink water? Now, if it's something silly, like, well, people just say that I should, and so I just think I should because everybody's telling me to do it. That is not a motivation that's going to stick for you. If it is something where it's like, I've noticed that on the days that I don't drink water, I'm really constipated, and that causes me a lot of discomfort. And I notice that when I drink water, my brain feels really clear and I go to the bathroom well and all this kind of stuff, then there's more of a why there, right? It's a personal reason. Your motivation for doing something has to be internally motivated, or you're generally going to have a really hard problem. If you're just making a list of things you should do, it's probably not going to happen. If you're making a list of things you actually want to do, then you're probably going to do them. So if you don't want to do them, then sometimes don't do them. It just depends, right? Like if it's something arbitrary that somebody randomly said that you should do, maybe it's not something you actually need to do. Maybe it's not right for you. However, sometimes we come into a place where there's actually a fear or a block or resistance. That's where some of the emotional work comes in. So sometimes our brain, we will self sabotage because, again, our brain likes things that are familiar and comfortable, even if it's uncomfortable. So sometimes your brain can be comfortable in its discomfort because it's familiar. So again, sometimes your brain can be comfortable in discomfort because it's familiar. So if that's the case, you really need to start asking yourself, what is the secondary gain that I get from living my life this way? And a secondary gain is a benefit that we wouldn't necessarily like think is a benefit, but it is something that we are holding on to because it's providing some sort of benefit to us. So let me think of an example here. So okay, so avoiding going into coaching with a practitioner, even you're like, man, I really want to heal, um, but I'm just not going to book that call. I'm not going to do it. The gain there or the benefit there is that I don't have to deal with any of my emotions. I don't have to process any of my emotions. If I don't have to do that, I can avoid some really uncomfortable moments in my life, and I can stay where I'm at. I'm uncomfortable, but I'm comfortable in my discomfort because it's familiar, right? So that's where I was talking about getting stuck in phase 3. That's that where that happens a lot. There's secondary gains to staying stuck. So it's a really short example of that, but basically, if you are trying to create a habit, you need to identify the motivation behind the habit, and if there is a resistance that is coming up, you need to identify, is there a secondary gain to staying stuck? What is that? And if you don't want that anymore, then that's going to require working with somebody to process how to switch that. If it's a limiting belief, do you replace the belief? If it's conflicting parts, do you integrate the parts? If it's a fear or a negative emotion, how do you process that? And so again, that's a lot of the work that you can do with the coach as well. But you can start with some of the more basic stuff of picking one, pairing it with something that you already have created as a habit, and creating some sort of reward or consequence for doing it. All right. Well, that was really fun. We talked about the 5 phases of recovery, what it looks like to choose a life of transformation, and I answered the questions that were submitted ahead of time. If you have any other questions, you're watching live or you're watching the replay, drop questions below. I'm happy to answer them. This group is really for you. I want you to feel safe and valued, and I want you to feel like this is a great place to be and a great community for you. So I want to answer the questions that you have. And if you are interested in working together, there is I'll post a link to work together below. You can book a free connection call. On that call, basically we get to know each other, and I learn about where you are in your recovery journey, and then I can share with you how we could work together to help you move through those phases, whatever phase you are in. If you are in phases 1 or 2 really early on in your recovery journey, I have the What's Next course for you. That course is less than the cost of one typical counseling session. And so that is hours and hours and hours of information that saves you time and helps you get an understanding of what you can do in the first phases of recovery to really lay that healthy, stable foundation for yourself moving forward. If you have any questions, as always, please just drop a comment below or send me a DM. And please remember that you are beautiful, you are worthy, and you are enough. Have a great day.